alternative options. I love both, such as surgery for his injured left knee. Sources telling ESPN on Sunday both sides have hope for progress in Embiid's condition, but his determination to play and current treatments, including regular injections, sources said have not led to any improvement. It's an understatement to say this has been an extremely disappointing season in Philadelphia. Obviously, Embiid has dealt with a myriad of injuries throughout his career. I'll come to you, Legs. What should Philly do with Embiid?
I mean, you don't have a choice because this isn't going to rectify itself with what they're doing, the injections, the rest occasionally, or sometimes extended rest. It's obvious. Are you watching the guy move? It's not going to improve. And I'm not even saying, look, he can still go out there some nights and be a productive player. He's probably still better at 70% than whatever else they'd put in that spot off their bench. That's not the point. The point is this is going to gradually continue to get worse. It's obvious. Joel Embiid, by his own admission, is saying this won't be right until I get this actually addressed. And you know what that means? That means surgery. So if that's what it's going to take, do it now. What's the point of running him out there every night? Looking the way he looks. He can't move at all defensively. He becomes a perimeter player offensively on those nights when he's feeling that swelling and stiffness in his knee, and he basically can't move. And you're forcing people to try to watch it. And I understand, listen, I understand the reaction, by the way, of we just gave him a $190 million extension. Make the guy play. We're getting some return on this investment. But is that really, like, smart long-term? What you're hoping at this point, the best you can hope with Embiid, let's try to squeeze out something of the end of this contract with some health. And you do that by getting surgery now and sending him home and call it a wrap on the season because they really haven't had a season.
StephenA?
I think Daryl Morey's going to end up losing his job in Philadelphia. I'm not advocating for it, but I think it's important to mention. Because at some point in time, if you're the billionaire owner for the Philadelphia 76ers, you're going to ask Daryl Morey, why did we give Joel Embiid this extension? Look at his health. Look at how debilitated he is. And if indeed it's a health concern, which obviously it is, why did you let him play in the Olympics? Why couldn't we compel him for that not to be an issue? Those kind of questions are going to come up. I didn't even bring up the fourth year you gave Paul George. Okay, because the Clippers, if I'm Paul George, I'm going to tell you what I think is the issue with Paul George right now, Shannon and Tim. Paul George never wanted to be in Philadelphia. He went there for the money. And I think it's something that we all have to look at. Obviously, with the job that he did in L.A., what they had the potential to be, he clearly felt that he was worth it. And you can make a legitimate argument that he was. With the year that he had last year, he was balling. But let's understand, there's something to be said about not being able to put a price on happiness. We all want to get paid. None of us are going to apologize for that. He took that extra fourth year. I think that sometimes you got to ask yourself whether that extra year of dollars, which will be coming down the road, was worth sacrificing the level of happiness you had in L.A. compared to the misery you are now experiencing on the East Coast in Philadelphia, in a place that you never really, really wanted to be, in my humble opinion. That's what I think is primarily the issue with Paul George. A new system, being in a place that he doesn't want to be in, he just went there for the money. Okay, that's what I believe. With Embiid, I think that he looks... You got to get him. So I don't give a damn. You got to find out what Kobe did when, God rest his soul, when he used to go over there to Germany. And stuff. Do something, because Embiid looks like he can barely move. His health is awful.
He can't barely move.
And I'm just saying, he's on the verge where if you almost get to a point, Shannon, and I'll hand it to you with this. You almost gotten to a point where if you Embiid, you're kind of wondering, should you consider retiring and taking the insurance money? Should you consider doing something like that? Because that's how debilitated he looks. The Sixers are going nowhere. They clearly need to sit him and Paul George for the rest of the season to try to get whatever you can get out of them over the final 3 years of their deal, and just do it that way. Because you're going nowhere this year. All you're doing is adding and stockpiling physical abuse on their bodies. There's no reason for them to be playing anymore.
StephenA, to your point about Paul George, there's no crying on a yacht. You asked for this. You wanted that fourth year. You wanted it from the Clippers. They wouldn't give it to you. The one team that would was the Philadelphia 76ers. So you got that fourth year. It's going to be $50+ million. No crying on the yacht. In Joel Embiid's case, everything you guys said are correct. Joel Embiid limped into the playoffs. he limped out of the playoffs. Instead of sitting his butt down, getting that knee healthy, I understand what America has done for him and his family and him wanting to play in the Olympics. But if I'm Josh Harris, there's no way in hell Joel Embiid, now unless the U.S. men's Olympic team gonna give him 3 years at $193 million, have at it, take off. But other than that, if I gotta pay that salary, Joel Embiid's not playing. Joel Embiid is gonna be healthy because your number one obligation is to the Philadelphia 76ers. They pay the contract. They is what's giving you generational wealth for generations and generations to come. Joel Embiid hasn't. When has Joel Embiid been healthy except the 1 year he won the MVP? That's the only time he's been healthy, guys. He's had back, he's had stomach, he's had this issue. And it's just like a car. StephenA, guys, you know this. If you have a flat tire, you can continue to drive on it, but guess what? It's just not going to mess up that side. And the rotors on the tire that's flat, your rear end alignment, everything is going to go bad. And that's what Joel Embiid is doing. Because he's out of line, he's going to hurt other things. You watch. If you don't sit it down, he's going to start having back issues again. The other side is going to have to compensate, and he's going to hurt that. That is a large man. And the one thing I know about health, people don't normally get healthy as they age, especially people that size. If I'm the Sixers, I'm setting Joel Embiid down. Say, big fella, get healthy. You got March, April, May, June, July, August, September. They start in October. Get healthy. He's doing them no service. And as a matter of fact, Legs, you're absolutely right. He's hurting himself. We always thought he's going to have a short career. He limped into the NBA. He's going to limp out of it.
Well, the only last part that I mentioned is that there's a reason I brought up Daryl Morey. The reason I brought up Daryl Morey is not just because Elton Brand was doing a good job before he arrived and they just repositioned Elton Brand to be under him. But the other thing is that most of Daryl Morey, you know this, Tim, most of Daryl Morey's decisions are based primarily on analytics. That's why you signed the contracts that you signed. So guess what? There's consequences for that. Now, again, I'm not advocating for the man to be dismissed. I'm simply saying if I'm the owner, Josh Harris, who owns the Washington Commanders, by the way, whose team was just in the NFC Championship game, who has the Rookie of the Year on his squad and the number one sport in America, if I'm him and I got to get to the basketball season, and I'm looking at the atrocity that the Philadelphia 76ers has become, heads must roll because decisions that have been made have not been impressive. I'm sorry. You got to do something about it.
This is heavy because you can make a case this is the worst it's been for Embiid. Since he dealt with this stuff early in his career that Shannon was alluding to, since that, typically what happens is he'll get hurt, but he has stretches even in those seasons where he is arguably the most dominant offensive player in the league. This year, you haven't seen it at all.
At all.
He's tried to manage this, and he keeps talking about it himself and how he feels. And in some ways,
he's alluded to days off.
Going out there on one leg and acting like he's trying to fight his way through this. I guess for the city of Philadelphia, whatever it may be. No, man, this is as bad as it's gotten for him because at no point has he had a healthy stretch this entire season, and we're 60 games in. Yeah. It's time. You just say, you know what, it's not happening this year. Our best bet to get something out of this contract going forward is to deal with this now, to give him more time to be healthy and at his best when the season starts. So I think based on where they're at, make that decision now.
Shannon?
Legs, having been an ex-professional athlete myself, tell me the time the doctor have told you had an injury. He said, but Legs, by playing on it, you'll get healthy. What do they tell you to do, Legs, if you have an injury? Sit your butt down.
That's right.
Rest, ice, compression, elevation. That's what Joel Embiid needs. He's not going to get healthier. I love when doctors say, well, you can't make it worse. Can I make it better? You telling me I can't make it worse by playing on it? Can I get it better by playing on it? Because if I can't get it better by playing on it, there is no in between. It's either going to get worse or it's going to get better. And if you're telling me I can't get it better, I'm going to make it worse. Joel, sit down, bro. Get this knee healthy so you can have, and you're right, StephenA, about Morey, because he let James Harden go. He gave Paul George that contract, and he gave Joel Embiid an extension when he didn't have to. He gave the man an extension knowing his injury history and knowing he was hurt when he gave it to him.
Yeah. Because Daryl Morey's Achilles heel is that he caters to the stars entirely too much. When you hear people talk about him, that's what they say. I think he's a good man. I think he knows basketball. I don't wish for him to get fired or anything like that. But he does cater to his stars a bit too much. And that has to come to mind when you consider the extension that was given to Joel Embiid, knowing that his health was debilitated and he played in the Olympics. You don't know how he's going to look come training camp. And sure enough, he came into training camp and didn't look good at all. How you play an Olympic and win a gold medal and you show up a month and a half later to training camp looking worse than you did at the Olympics?
This might be might be the most disappointing team this season, just based on where we projected them to be, getting Paul George and how this is all panned out.
Getting that knee healthy, I understand what America has done for him and his family, and him wanting to play in the Olympics. But if I'm Josh Harris, there's no way in hell Joel Embiid, now unless the U.S. men's Olympic team gonna give him 3 years at $193 million, have at it, take off. But other than that, if I gotta pay that salary, Joel Embiid's not playing. Joel Embiid is gonna be healthy because your number one obligation is to the Philadelphia 76ers. They pay the contract. They is what's giving you generational wealth for generations and generations to come. Joel Embiid hasn't. When has Joel Embiid been healthy except the 1 year he won the MVP? That's the only time he's been healthy, guys. He's had back, he's had stomach, he's had this issue. And it's just like a car. StephenA, guys, you know this. If you have a flat tire, you can continue.
Sources close to the situation have indicated that Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers are weighing alternative options, including surgery, for his injured left knee. While there remains hope for progress, Embiid's current treatment regimen, which includes regular injections, has failed to yield any meaningful improvement. The frustration surrounding this season in Philadelphia is palpable. For a team with championship aspirations, the recurring injury woes of their franchise cornerstone have cast a shadow over their trajectory. Embiid's battles with injuries have been a defining narrative of his career. Now, facing yet another major setback, the Sixers are left with a critical decision. The notion that continued injections, sporadic rest, or even extended breaks will lead to meaningful recovery appears increasingly unrealistic. Anyone watching Embiid move on the court can see the issue plainly. The situation is not improving. Despite his undeniable talent, the version of Embiid currently suiting up for Philadelphia is operating at a fraction of his capabilities. Even at 70%, he is still likely a better option than most available replacements, but that isn't the point. The real issue is that his condition is deteriorating, and by his own admission, it won't be right until he undergoes surgery. If that's the inevitable conclusion, then why delay the process? The reality is stark. Embiid's defensive mobility is virtually non-existent, and on the offensive end, his game has been significantly altered. He has transitioned into more of a perimeter player on nights when swelling and stiffness are at their worst, limiting his ability to dominate the paint as he has in years past. The Sixers front office must confront the hard truth. Sending him out there night after night in his current state serves no long-term purpose. There is no championship run on the horizon for this team as presently constructed, and all they are doing by playing Embiid is subjecting him to further physical strain. The smart move would be to shut him down now, undergo surgery, and focus on ensuring he is in optimal condition for next season. Meanwhile, the ramifications of this situation could extend beyond Embiid himself. There is growing speculation that Sixers president Daryl Morey could find himself on the hot seat in Philadelphia. While no one is explicitly calling for his removal, it's not hard to envision team ownership questioning the series of decisions that have led to this point. The decision to offer Embiid a lucrative extension despite his well-documented injury history will undoubtedly be scrutinized. And if health was already a concern, why was he allowed to compete in the Olympics instead of focusing solely on recovery? These are the kinds of questions ownership will want answers to, and if Morey doesn't have them, his job security could be in jeopardy. Adding to the Sixers' woes is the situation with Paul George. There is a growing belief that George never truly wanted to be in Philadelphia and that his decision to sign was driven by financial incentives rather than personal preference. He wanted that fourth year on his contract, and the Sixers were the only team willing to grant it. But now, the question becomes, was the extra year of financial security worth sacrificing the happiness he enjoyed in Los Angeles? It's fair to wonder whether he is already regretting the move, particularly given the dysfunction currently plaguing the Sixers. The Sixers' predicament is compounded by the fact that their championship window appears to be closing. With Embiid's health declining and George struggling to find his place in a new system, there is little reason to believe this team is capable of making a deep playoff run. Given the circumstances, the best course of action would be to shut both players down for the remainder of the season, allow them to heal, and reassess the team's direction moving forward. Philadelphia is going nowhere this year, and forcing Embiid and George to play through these issues serves no meaningful purpose beyond compounding the damage. From a broader perspective, this is yet another chapter in the saga of Joel Embiid's health struggles. Since entering the NBA, he has rarely been fully healthy for extended periods. The only season in which he maintained consistent health was his MVP campaign, and even then, there were lingering concerns about his durability. This latest injury only reinforces the notion that his long-term viability as a franchise player is in serious question. He limped into the NBA, and at this rate he may limp out of it as well. This situation also underscores the inherent flaws in Morey's roster-building approach. Morey is widely recognized as one of the league's foremost advocates of analytics-driven decision-making, but sometimes, basketball isn't just about numbers. It's about durability, fit, and long-term viability. The decision to extend Embiid and sign George to a massive contract despite their respective injury histories exemplifies the risk of placing too much faith in raw data and not enough in practical, long-term planning. If this season continues to unravel, ownership may decide that it's time for a new vision in the front office. Ultimately, the Sixers must confront a reality that is becoming increasingly impossible to ignore. This season is a lost cause. Embiid's health isn't improving, and neither is the team's outlook. If they hope to salvage any chance of success in the coming years, they need to make the difficult but necessary decision to shut him down, undergo surgery, and focus on his long-term health. Anything short of that is just delaying the inevitable and putting his career and the franchise's future at even greater risk.